Hi, everyone, and welcome to Legal Limelight. Today's guest is Sara Yood. She's the president, CEO, and general counsel at the Jewelers Vigilance Committee, the JVC, a not-for-profit trade organization that serves as the ethical heart of the jewelry industry. She has extensive experience in IP law, fashion law, anti-money laundering, sanctions compliance, sustainability, and responsible sourcing. She's a Fordham Law alum, and she's a dear friend of mine. Thank you so much, Sara, for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Francesca. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to everybody about what we do at JVC.
Yes, I learned about you when I think I was a baby lawyer. I didn't even know that there was a committee such as yours that helps protect the jewelry industry. So can you tell us a little bit about what the organization does?
Absolutely. So JVC was founded in 1917 by a group of jewelers who wanted to get together and enforce a law that had been passed that required that jewelers be accurate when they were stamping their gold and silver products. That obviously has evolved since 1917, and now it's an organization filled with jewelry members who are all really devoted to ethics and compliance. So that means that we focus on really anything legal that touches the jewelry industry. We have expertise on our staff, and we will help businesses comply with all of the laws that apply to the purchase and sale of jewelry.
It's fantastic. And as I read your title, you are not just general counsel, you are
That's right.
also CEO and president. Can you tell us a little bit about your role in the company and how that's evolved?
Absolutely. So I actually started at JVC 13 years ago as a baby lawyer. I was hired as an assistant counsel to work specifically on a project. The Federal Trade Commission has a set of advertising guidelines that apply to the jewelry industry, and they were revising them for the first time in over 10 years. So that's originally why I was hired into the organization, and I've stayed since then and gotten promoted. And in June of this year, I was promoted to president, CEO, and general counsel of the organization. Each title has a function. It's very silly, but
Lots of jobs in one.
yeah, exactly. So the president title is so that I'm a member of the board of directors. The CEO is I'm running the organization, and obviously we all know what general counsel means. So it's a lot of different work. I have my hand all over the organization, and it's been a lot of fun to take on this leadership opportunity.
I'm really excited to pick your brain because I get a lot of questions from law students who say, I worked at a firm for a couple years, recent law grads who went to law school and now they're trying to figure out what they want to do. And they've come to me and say, well, maybe I don't want to be a lawyer. What else can I do? So, although I'm sure you didn't maybe didn't not necessarily plan this, do you want to tell us a little bit about the trajectory of your career? Did you want to have more of a business role, or did you get an opportunity for this kind of and that's how it ended up happening for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually, after college, I worked in music licensing for 4 years here in New York. And there was a lawyer on staff at that company who sat me down one day and said, Sara, I think you should think about law school, which I had not ever
Oh,
considered. Like it was not on the radar at all. Um, and I was kind of shocked. And he explained that I was the only person in the company who came in to ask him questions about copyright law that wasn't already a lawyer.
wow.
And so I thought, okay, if somebody's telling me that I should think about this, maybe I should think about this. So I went to law school with the intention of staying in music. And then at some point during my law school career, that's when Spotify was introduced and the entire music
Industry change.
licensing scheme changed, and all of that was wildly different by the time I graduated from law school. Um, so I graduated from law school in 2011, which is historically a not great year to graduate from law school. Without a significant number of employment opportunities, I actually ended up taking a fellowship at the Fashion Law Institute at Fordham Law, where I had gone to school. Professor Scafidi, who I think lots of folks know in the sort of field of fashion law, was incredible to work for. And she ended up introducing me to the one who hired me at JVC.
It's amazing.
So yeah, so during my time at the Fashion Law Institute, we had a CLE panel about diamonds, and my former boss, Cecilia, was on the panel and called Susan the next day and said, we've been thinking about hiring another lawyer. Do you think Sarah would be interested? Um, so now, again, 13 years later, I'm still here, which I think is pretty different for a lot of people's careers, but the work is fascinating. The people are incredible. And I love the business of jewelry, which
Yeah.
was a surprise.
I love, yeah. So that is where I think fashion law and the jewelry industry and beauty and these types of industries, you do need to have a understanding of the actual business of it in order to be an attorney to advise these companies. So how did your passion for that affect your growth in the company?
Sure. I came in as a casual jewelry consumer. Pretty much all of my like good jewelry was things that my mom gave me, so like, oh, this was
Um,
your grandma's, here, you take it. Um, the learning curve is pretty steep in the jewelry industry. There's so many different parts of it that you have to understand. So like, for example, the way that diamonds are traded is actually quite different from the way that colored gemstones are traded. And
wow.
even within colored gemstones, what they call the big three, which are rubies, emerald, and sapphire, are different than everything else. And so there's so much market segmentation. The way that you treat gold and silver differs from the way that you deal with platinum. All of these things are different. And there are so many different businesses along the jewelry supply chain that really have just like different ways of operating. So you have some huge gold jewelry manufacturers, and then you'll have, a diamond dealer business that has two employees, but they're making a similar, revenue because they're selling super, super high-end diamonds. It is still heavily male dominated, despite the fact that we are selling a product that mostly women wear,
Yes.
not exclusively, but more women than men. Um, and that has its own challenges too. It's a really interesting dynamic to navigate, especially as someone who is not from a family that was in the jewelry business. That's different than a lot of the folks who are. Many of these companies are passed down generation to generation, and there's a long tradition of relationships between them. So breaking into that is its own challenge.
So not only did you have to learn an industry, you learned a very complicated industry that has sub-industries within the industries and family, politics. I'm sure there's a lot of a
Absolutely.
lot of things.
And language too. Like
Yes.
there's this, there are so many jewelry words that are just jewelry words, and then there are those words in other languages that are
Wow.
still used, even on 47th Street today. Still so many transactions happen in Yiddish or in Hebrew, and or in a lot of other languages. And so picking up little bits and pieces of that here and there, and occasionally sprinkling in the like tiny bit of Yiddish that I have, it gets you pretty far.
That's so cool. It's such a good it's a great company and you're not only it's nonprofit, but you're overlapping with commercial business and you're also overlapping with the government. So can you tell us a little bit about how you maybe balance the public sector, private
Yeah.
sector, and
Yeah,
commercial?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So I say that I'm split kind of 50-50. So 50% of the time I am like responding to member inquiries or talking to people on the board of directors, or really just, working within sort of that structure. And then I would say the other 50% of the time I am towards the federal government or state governments. And we don't lobby, we don't go to the Hill. That's not, in our remit, but we do work very closely hand in hand with a number of different federal agencies that regulate the jewelry industry. And there are those that you can think of normally. So like the Federal Trade Commission has those advertising guidelines for jewelry. The State Department deals with, all kinds of intergovernmental things like, sanctions and our relations with other countries, which are important because those are the source countries for all of the products that, go into jewelry. Um, The Treasury Department regulates us through anti-money laundering regulations that jewelers are required to adhere to. But then there are some that you might be surprised to hear that we correspond with the Fish and Wildlife. But there are some animal products that are used in jewelry, like coral or abalone or other things like that, and those are pretty heavily regulated by Fish and Wildlife. And then even the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, because there are some gemstones that are irradiated to enhance their color. And if you're bringing them into the United States, you have to get a license through the NRC. So it's a really wild set of federal agencies that we work with. And we know folks, government folks at all of those different agencies who are working on jewelry as part of a larger portfolio.
It's fascinating. I mean, not only are you dealing with the legal issues, but also the business issues. Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel balancing those and whether or not you have a preference for one or the other, or if it's interesting to balance the both?
It's super interesting to balance both because, part of the function of JVC is to sort of translate governmental guidance into approachable and achievable language that, business folks can actually understand. There's a reason JVC exists, not just because we do this role, but many jewelry businesses are too small to have in-house counsel. And many of them are too small to easily afford outside counsel, except in very specific circumstances. And so they kind of treat us like their opt-in legal compliance department. So if they have a legal question or, something has come up where they're like, I don't understand the law, they know they can come to JVC and we will explain the law to them. We will look at their situation and say, okay, here's the law. Like, no, this labeling isn't correct. The FTC regulations say that you have to do this. And so for them, there's a huge benefit in being a member of our association. We will also then tell them if they get to a point where we're like, okay, this is now a dispute. We cannot represent you, and then we will send you to outside counsel.
It's fascinating, and you were taught to issue spot, so you're probably issue spotting on a much grander scale when you're dealing with not just legal issues but corporate issues. It's
Yeah.
it's it's so cool. It's fantastic, Sarah. And
It's
then
fun because we get to be involved in business decisions, for small and big and everything in between. So it's a real test of your agility to move
yeah,
back and forth between those kinds of things.
that's the right word for it. And as I was reading your bio, the first thing that you listed was intellectual property law, which is our favorite, of course. Can we talk a little bit about IP protection for jewelry? Because it's fascinating how many business owners I meet with that may not know that copyright actually extends to jewelry. It's an interesting position in the US where copyright doesn't extend to fashion articles themselves, like the cuts, the shape, but jewelry is protected. So how
Yeah,
often are you working with companies to utilize copyright to
yeah.
protect them?
Pretty frequently, it's something that we really encourage our members to pursue, partially because it's low cost. The cost of filing an application is pretty minimal. And also, because of the, I guess recent-ish change that if you want to sue someone for copyright infringement, you have to have a valid registration. And so we encourage people all the time to, register their designs. I have to say, we have seen over the last few years that it's getting harder to get registrations from the Copyright Office for jewelry designs. Part of that is because there is theoretically a limited universe of designs out there, right? There's only so many new ones you can make. And you have to really have something original in order to get copyright protection. So you're not going to be able to get copyright protection on your Halo diamond ring, for example, because that everybody is making that. That's not original. But there are plenty of designers out there who are making incredible original work, who should qualify for protection. And so we encourage them to take that route when they can.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I always, it always surprises me when I have like, a jewelry client come in and they never even thought about
Right.
copyright. So it's great that your group is here and we're
Yeah,
helping to educate entrepreneurs and understanding it's
absolutely.
protectable.
For sure. And then on the, on the trademark side, one function of the law is so there's this law, the National Gold and Silver Stamping Act, which was passed in 1906, signed into law by Teddy Roosevelt. And it says that if you are going to mark a precious metal article with fineness, so like let's say, for example, you're going to say, I'm making a gold ring and I'm putting 14 karat on it. I am writing marking for 14K on this ring to indicate the fineness of that piece. You must also include a federally registered trademark with that fineness stamp.
I
That
literally
is,
think that's how we connected 10 years ago
yeah.
because I had a very big brand client that was dealing with this issue because they wanted the registered trademark was too big. So they wanted to figure out if they can use the logo, but it wasn't
Mhm.
registered. That's so interesting. Just
Yeah,
brought back
yeah,
memories.
exactly. So you have to register your logo in order to comply with this law. And the law also doesn't say that you must mark your piece with the fineness. So if you don't want to put 14K on there, you don't have to. But if you are going to, you must also use your registered trademark.
I'm sure that's one that not many businesses are compliant with.
This is true, and it's something that comes up all the time.
Wow, a tidbit. Oh my gosh, Sarah, I wanted to have you on the show because you're just one of my favorite humans. But
Oh,
I think, the information that you're giving people and the work that you're doing and the JVC is doing, it's been a staple in the industry where we're constantly watching all the events that you're doing and everything that you're posting online. Do you have any upcoming events or are there things where we can have people connect with you or see you in person?
yes, absolutely. So we have a calendar of our speaking events on our website, which is jvclegal.org. But also coming up very soon, March 14th at the Pierre Hotel, we have our one annual fundraiser. It's just one luncheon. That's it. But we have a lovely program planned, an incredible guest speaker that I can't say anything about right now, but is very soon to be announced. And it's just a really lovely networking opportunity. If you're in the jewelry industry and you want to meet more folks who care about legal compliance and ethics, please do join us March 14th.
Oh, it's fantastic. Hopefully Eska will be there. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if people want to connect with you directly, what's the best way where they can reach you?
Absolutely. So again, our website is jvclegal.org. All of our contact information is on there. JVC is also on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. The JVC Instagram is at JVC Legal, and my Instagram is at Yood ESQ.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next week.